All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope wherever you are in the world, it's been a good day so far and it's about to get a little bit better. I'm joined here with Robin and Jay from Liquidium. How you guys doing?
Hey, how you doing? We're doing good. Chilling in South Africa right now and enjoying the warmth as long as it's still warm here.
Yeah, you're entering your fall, right? It's fall down there.
Yeah, correct.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, Liquidium's been on an incredible run so far. You guys have done some really impressive numbers. We've talked about it before when Jay was in Zurich with us. So just kind of, in case anyone's watching and they're kind of new to the whole, they could be new to the whole ordinals and rune space, or maybe even new to the Liquidium name. Give us kind of like an idea of like how Liquidium got started and like what the product will, what product you guys have been running for the last like 18 months.
Yeah, 100%.
Uh-oh. That
Um, oh,
Oh, there we go.
the,
Okay.
all right. So yeah,
Right when you started.
yeah. So Liquidium is a peer-to-peer borrowing and lending protocol. Essentially, you to borrow Bitcoin against your Bitcoin assets. So, for example, ordinals, runes, and BRC20 tokens. Previously, like if you had ordinals and runes and BRC20 tokens, they were just sitting in your wallet. You could sell them, you could buy them, but that was about it. And with Liquidium, we basically unlocked the ability for you to use these assets as collateral and then borrow native Bitcoin against them and basically unlock liquidity without having to sell your assets. So that's kind of the one part of the system. And then the other part of the system is lending. So we have enabled you to lend out your native Bitcoin to borrowers and to then earn interest on your native Bitcoin, which I think is very novel in the space. I think it's pretty much the first non-custodial way of earning BTC on your BTC. So yeah, that's a, I guess, high level what Liquidium is.
It has. I mean, it's kind of phenomenal. I love that. Like, if you're an ordinal trader or even hodler or a runes trader or hodler, you have a way to essentially kind of use them as you're hodling. But then even on the Bitcoin side, you guys are probably the only app I've seen where the yield earned from lending Bitcoin actually has economic benefit. Right? It's not based on some weird tokenomic model kind of a deal where, right? So and so obviously like the audience has loved it, your users have loved it, and you guys have seen some impressive numbers. I know Jay and I talked through a few of them. Do you mind kind of giving some background of like what's the scale of volume you guys are doing, how many users, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, great question. So we have been live since essentially like on layer one Bitcoin, we've been live since July of 2023. And throughout this whole time, essentially like last year, I think was our best year. We grew a lot over 2024. And over this time period now, we have done over 4,000 Bitcoin in volume, which at, I guess, the heights of Bitcoin, that was over 400 million US dollars in total volume. And then we're almost at 100,000 loans that went through our platform. I think right now we're at like 95,000. So 100K loans is definitely a big milestone for us. And then the next big milestone is like 5,000 Bitcoin. I think both of them are definitely like great goals, and I'm very happy of like the traction that we've already received. I mean, it definitely shows that people are very interested in using DeFi applications in the space, even on Bitcoin, even though it's a little bit slower than Solana. And in the beginning, it has been a little bit more clunky than Solana or Ethereum, but it works and the people want it. And I think that shows. So yeah, I think that's kind of the yeah, I guess some good metrics to see that there is actual demand for it.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about like $400 million in volume in essentially less than 2 years, there's very few applications in the entire DeFi ecosystem that have done that type of volume. You guys are already in rare company, but even on the Bitcoin space, that's even more rare. How do you guys kind of like, you gave some metrics for like 5,000 Bitcoin as a nice like round milestone. Is that how you guys are measuring success? Is like how much Bitcoin you guys are processing?
Well, I think the success that we measure is in how many problems of users we solve. So that was kind of like the goal from the get-go, is just trying to find out like what is needed in the space. How can we make Bitcoin better in the sense of programmability on Bitcoin and actual use cases on Bitcoin? I mean, everybody knows that Bitcoin has been sort of this dinosaur as a cryptocurrency. Obviously, it has gone up in value, and it was a great store of value. And even with Lightning, it's cool to like transact or like to buy a little coffee or something like that. But then when it comes to actual financial applications or anything like that, Bitcoin has never really played a big role, and Ethereum kind of came in with the idea of smart contracts and building apps on top of the blockchain technology, and we kind of wanted to bring that to Bitcoin and in any way possible. And in order to do that in an impactful way, you have to understand what the people need, what the people want, and how we can solve their problems. And yeah, I think the numbers are great, obviously, but they are definitely not the number one success metric for us.
Okay, very good, very good. And I mean, it's when I got into Bitcoin, it was probably back in like 2018. I remember that there was this term that people said, which is Ethereum is the test net for Bitcoin, right? You're going to try stuff out on Ethereum, and whatever works,
Yes.
we'll just adopt it onto Bitcoin. That was a great rally cry, I would say. But I would say, like, you know, especially the 2021 bull market kind of showed, like, I don't know, like, what is Bitcoin doing to evolve and stuff. And so you guys are coming in this great space of innovation on Bitcoin, trying to bring some of that success that Ethereum and Solana have done and bring it back to Bitcoin. Which I guess, and I loved how you phrased it, like, it's not about the amount of Bitcoin, it's not about the number of users, it's about the number of problems we're solving. I think that's a good transition into instant loans. So kind of walk us through what instant loans is and what the problem was that your users were experiencing.
Yeah, 100%. So with instant loans, or like with the previous iteration of loans, like we call them manual loans. The way that it works is it's entirely on Bitcoin, and because it is entirely on Bitcoin, we have to use like primitive Bitcoin technologies. We are using partially signed Bitcoin transactions as well as discrete log contracts to essentially facilitate the loan. And the way that the transaction has to be structured is by using something called SIG#all, which means that we need to know every single UTXO, like every single bit and piece that plays into the transaction before we can actually create the transaction. That's the only way that we can make a secure transaction that ends up being a loan in the way that we have it. And the problem with that was that in a lending setting, somebody has to make a loan offer, somebody has to accept it, and then because we can only create the transaction when we know both parties and all inputs and outputs, only then we can create the transaction, which meant that the lender needed to create the loan offer, the borrower needed to accept it, and then the lender had to come back to the platform and sign it. And that was a huge point of friction, of course, because that meant that borrowers need to wait for lenders to come back. There is a risk that the lender will never come back, and then the borrower won't even get a loan. Or the in between borrower signing and lender signing, some other transactions happen, and then suddenly this whole transaction doesn't work again. So now you need to rebuild the transaction, and it's a back and forth. So these were all, I think, the biggest concerns, and these were trade-offs that the users were willing to take because they knew, okay, we are on Bitcoin and Bitcoin is a little bit more limited. But obviously it was worsening the user experience, and on Solana you could still create a better user experience. And with instant loans, we finally managed to tackle that problem by using the internet computer as essentially a second hand or as an assistant to the lender. So what happens now with instant loans is that the lender creates an offer, the borrower accepts it, and the loan immediately starts. No need to wait for the lender to come back, no dropped loans. Just like as a borrower, you will definitely get the loan, you will get it right away, you don't have to wait. And that's such a much bigger or a much better user experience for both lenders and borrowers, because lenders can just create the offer and chill. And if somebody accepts it, they don't have to rush to come back and sign. And the borrowers obviously get an instant loan. And the way it works is that essentially we're using an ICP smart contract that can sign loans in behalf of the lender. So we're still facing the same Bitcoin restrictions that we need both the borrower and the lender signature, but the lender signature is basically provided by the smart contract. So the lender pre-approves the signature, basically tells the smart contract, hey, listen, I have created this offer. You should just sign it for me if somebody comes in and accepts that offer. And then basically the smart contract can sign that for the lender, which results in these instant loans. And I think this is a beautiful way of demonstrating that Bitcoin, while it is limited, it can be enhanced by other networks like ICP, and we can basically build things on top of it. The way that I like to describe it in a way is in traditional web applications, we have a front end and a back end. And while the user only interacts with the front end, the back end in the background processes everything and plugs that back into the front end. And here it's exactly the same thing. The user only interacts with layer 1 Bitcoin, but then in the background we have ICP as the back end or as the logic layer that then kind of like says, okay, cool, I registered that, I can execute something now, and then it goes back into the front end, which is Bitcoin.
Yeah, I love just how you phrase that in terms of like the UX is very important. And I could imagine for your users who are borrowers, especially, usually you want to borrow because you see a market opportunity that you want to move quickly on, right? Like somebody floored an ordinal that you're like, I got to get my hands on that. Somebody dumped runes into an AMM and you want to make sure you get some Bitcoin so you can take advantage of the price drop. You don't want to wait and have the uncertainty of a lender coming back and saying, yeah, now let's execute. So, and by the way, you can imagine the borrower being like, hey, this lender's been gone for 2 hours, 3 hours. Should I just sell? Should I just, panic sell and then go buy my opportunity or something like that? So you kind of ease that out, which is phenomenal. And you do it in a way that you're not introducing, third parties beyond like custodying the Bitcoin or the Bitcoin asset. Have you guys seen in terms of so instant loans, you guys rolled it out for runes only currently, right?
Correct. Yeah. So at the moment, like basically, instant loans for runes is our first implementation of that technology. We are currently working on bringing that to ordinals as well. But yeah, runes is just like, I guess, the pilot project, and so far it has been working well. We can see in our analytics that basically all of the runes lending activity and borrowing activity is now shifting to instant loans, and that definitely validates that we have yet solved another problem for the users, which is cool. And now it gives us basically the approval that yes, we should proceed using that technology and plug that into ordinals as well, so that everybody can use instant loans.
In terms of like your user base, is it runes and ordinals? Are your users primarily interested in runes and ordinals, or do you have a customer base interested in BRC20s as well?
Yeah, so I think like probably it's safe to say that 95% of the activity is ordinals and runes. BRC20 is like a very small portion of people. It is probably also due to the fact that BRC20s are just they have more friction because you have to like inscribe a transfer, then send that transfer, and so on. We have like I would say that the way we did it on Liquidium is actually really user friendly. But at the end of the day, there is just a general shift in Bitcoin that goes from BRC20 to runes. You could see like basically all of the major BRC20 projects have migrated to runes as well. Yeah, there's very little activity for BRC20 at the moment. That's why I think that will be kind of like the last priority for us. Ordinals is our biggest market. I would say like 70% of the transactions are ordinals loans, and then like 25 maybe runes, and then the remaining 5 BRC20. And that's why, obviously, because at this point we are doing quite a bit of activity and transaction volumes. We didn't want to run a test project with our like 70% of our volume, but instead just start with the runes. And then also with runes, because of the way that Instant Loans works, we were basically able to recreate the whole runes borrowing experience from the beginning to make it much better overall, by not limiting the users to by not constraining the users to specific bundle sizes, but instead to say like you can borrow against anything. Like you can just literally, if you want to borrow against 420.69 dog, you can do that.
It's funny because I think, you know, a lot of the people watching this are probably more from like the altcoin space. And so when you say something like that, I think their first thought would be, well, why is that a challenging thing? Walk through like with runes, the UTXO model, and how that actually introduces complexity.
Yeah. So with runes, like because runes are UTXO based, you kind of like, I guess to describe UTXOs, and by the way, Bitcoin is also UTXO based. The way that UTXOs work is essentially like I have like a coupon, or like imagine just dollar bills. So I have like a $100 bill, and if I want to buy something for $10, I will give you that $100 bill, and you will give me back $90. And that's kind of how UTXOs work as well. Like if I receive Bitcoin, if you send me 1 Bitcoin, for example, I now have 1 UTXO that has 1 Bitcoin on it. And if I spend Bitcoin, then I will send that 1 Bitcoin to you, and then you will return the change to me. Essentially, that's how UTXOs work, and that's the same way that runes also work in this UTXO based model. And I mean, that brings some constraints, because if we're talking about basically a model where I need to list something, like for example, if I list something on a marketplace on Magic Eden, if I list my runes, I can't specify, or like I do have to list that entire UTXO. What I can do, if I don't want to do that, I can split it at first. So I can basically say I want to split that into smaller fractions, and then I list these. But at the end of the day, you always have to list like an entire UTXO. And yeah, on Liquidium, the way we did it is to streamline it. We had like different bundle sizes. So let's say, for example, on dog, we had like 100 dog, 1,000 dog, 10,000 dog, 100,000 dog. So these were kind of like the bundle sizes that we gave as options. And then lenders and borrowers basically had to take, or like were constrained to these bundle sizes. So if somebody had like 15,000 dog, they had to use that 10,000 dog bundle to get a loan, instead of just being free to choose whatever they want to use. And now, since we're doing like essentially the signing piece via ICP, we can just on the spot split the runes and take the exact amount.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's such a big, again, I'm very fascinated with this idea of crypto returning back to Bitcoin, this idea of like Ethereum and Solana are test nets. And so solving this UTXO management, I think, is something that you guys are pioneering. I know Omnity Network has done a lot in terms of kind of having easy made solutions. And so there's a lot that goes on. I'm saying all this to say, like, there's a lot that goes on under the hood, a lot of technical solution to get to where you guys are now. Would you be okay if I share do you want to walk through actually doing a borrower transaction so people can see like how this works?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, let me get this pulled back up. Sorry, I clicked off of it, and now I can bring it back up. All right, so here we are. I'm logged in to Liquidium. First of all, I guess I'll just say, like, you see borrow, lend. So this is depending on whether you've got Bitcoin that you want to lend out or you want to borrow Bitcoin. I will say there is this swap feature. Maybe we could touch on this just real quickly, because I think this is kind of a cool feature. It's an embedded Sats terminal. So
correct.
You can,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the swap, like this is basically just because we want to make it as easy as possible for everybody to do everything. We thought, okay, we want to integrate swaps. We don't want to build swaps ourselves just because it's not part of our core business. We want to stay laser focused on the lending part. So we essentially collaborated with Sats Terminal to bring that swap experience into Liquidium as this embed. And what Sats Terminal does, what is really unique, is it's an aggregator, which means it basically always gives you the best rate across all exchanges. And with Runes, we do have a bunch of exchanges. We have Magic Eden, OKX, Unisat. We have RuneStax. We have DotSwap. We have so many different options where you can buy and sell runes. And yeah, so Sats Terminal, basically, if I want to buy some Liquidium token, for example, I'll just like do it on the Liquidium swap. I'll get the best conversion rate. That way I don't have to like deal with different exchanges or anything like that. Or also, for example, if you're a lender and somebody defaulted on you and now you receive the collateral, then you can easily kind of like swap your runes back to Bitcoin if you want to do that, if you don't want to be exposed to that rune. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that user flow of especially like the liquidation event and being able to be like, okay, I just want to get back I want to get back into Bitcoin. You make it very easy. All right, so here's where I'm at. I've got some Odin Dog in my wallet here, and I want to get some Bitcoin because maybe I see the Liquidium token's got a very attractive price, and I want to take advantage of that right now. Walk me through what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, so this is the borrow page. So this is where you would, as you already described, this is where you would borrow Bitcoin against your runes. So in here, you can see all of the different runes that we're supporting right now. And yeah, basically, I mean, I think you mentioned that you have some Odin Dog. So why don't we just go ahead and borrow something?
So I come over here. So I've got 500 Odin Dog. Now there's 3 categories, right? On terms of the loan term, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days.
Yeah, correct. So it basically, lenders can create offers depending on how long they want to have the loan. So like as a lender, I could say I want to offer loans on 3 days or on just 5 days or on just 7 days or something like that, which means sometimes you will get, like, for example, better loan to value ratios on the shorter durations or something like that. So or in this case, like, for example, there is no loan offer on the 7-day term. Right now, there is only one on 3 days and 5 days. So yeah, I mean, it's and then at the end of the day, it's up to the borrower to decide if they want to have a longer loan duration or a shorter loan duration and pay more interest or less interest, kind of.
I gotcha. Yeah. And where do you see your customers or your users? Are they doing more shorter end of the range or more on the longer end?
Usually it tends to be towards the longer range, but it kind of depends on how good the offers are, because sometimes you might have like sometimes you might get, for example, for 1 Bitcoin worth of collateral, you might get like 0.9 Bitcoin so like 90% loan to value ratio on a 5-day loan, versus you would only get like 50% on a 10-day loan or something like that. So then people sometimes opt to go for the shorter loan just because they want to have more liquidity. But yeah, but generally, if the loan terms are similar, then borrowers tend to go for the long durations.
Gotcha. And just in case people aren't familiar with LTV, loan to value, so this is basically the amount of Bitcoin I can borrow relative to the dollar value of my rune, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So collateral versus loan principal.
Okay. So here you go. I want 5 days. 75% seems pretty fair to me. So you can see I can borrow. I can use 350 of my own dog. Or get actual Bitcoin against that. I'll be borrowing, or I'll receive $127 in Bitcoin, and in 5 days I have to repay $130. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see like on the right hand side, like your 350 Odin dog are worth $171. So that's the collateral for the loan, and then you'll receive $127 worth of Bitcoin. And as you said, like 5 days later, you have to repay $130. So like $3 in interest in this case.
Okay. And then I think just to prove how native Bitcoin it is, you guys have your fee selector here. So when I click submit, it's actually going to put something in the Bitcoin. It's going to put a transaction in the Bitcoin mempool. Now, obviously I can pay more to try to get it in the next block, pay less, and if I don't really care when I receive the Bitcoin, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Submit. I'm not sure if it's going to, oh yeah, it doesn't, you can't see. I have to unlock my Xverse wallet.
So this all just uses like native Bitcoin wallets. So everything that you're used to, obviously. So Xverse, OKX wallet, Unisat wallet, and all of that. And they directly connect to Liquidium, and then you just like sign a transaction, Xverse, and then it gets going by itself.
I mean, I love the user flow, and I love that you guys have gotten this entire process down to the basically is it one confirmation that it requires for this transaction to execute?
Exactly. Yeah, it's one confirmation. So now you can see the loan started. If you click view transaction, then you will see that the transaction is in the mempool. It's currently unconfirmed, but one cool thing about Bitcoin transactions is actually unconfirmed transactions, or like pending UTXOs, are actually usable. And on Liquidium, we actually make use of that. So for example, if you would have an active loan right now that you need to repay, you wouldn't even have to wait for that block to confirm. You can just right now immediately repay another loan with that money that you just borrowed, for example. Or if there are other like platforms that support unconfirmed transactions, you can just use that money immediately. And on Liquidium, we allow users to use unconfirmed transactions.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So people can kind of basically, I mean, it's basically like instituting a loan to pay back a previous loan, and kind of keeping keeping your capital in the market as opposed to in the like in this case runes or ordinals market.
Correct. Yeah. Some people just want to kind of like prolong their loans, and that's a great way to do it. I mean, obviously there is always risk to everything, so always like borrow responsibly. But yeah, I mean, it's great for people that don't want to use their collateral and they're like, oh shit, last minute, I need to repay that. I'll just borrow. I'll get an instant loan. I can immediately use that funds to repay within a couple seconds, essentially.
I love it. I love it. Now walk through these plus 50, plus 25%.
The plus, oh yeah. So this is for Liquidium points. So we have a point program in Liquidium. We have Liquidium seasons, essentially. They last 2 months. And in these seasons, you can accumulate points. The more points you have, the higher you will be on the leaderboard. And then at the end of each season, we have a bunch of Liquidium token rewards that we're sending out to the people. And the top, like the plus 50 and plus 25% that you're seeing here, is because we just launched instant loans, we thought it would be cool to collaborate with a bunch of runes collections and give a point boost on these runes. So everything that you see here, Pups, Dog, Odin Dog, Billion Dollar Cat, Bitcoin Bro Bear, Gizmo, and then also, of course, our own token have a point multiplier right now, just to, I guess, incentivize or reward the people that are early users of this product.
I love it. Yeah, and the Liquidium token has some governance function as well as some utility within the site, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and more to come.
More to come. Okay, I'll leave it to the audience to do some more research on the tokens. And anything else you want to highlight on? I will say one thing I probably should have pulled out is that you can actually toggle back over if for whatever reason you don't like instant, you like the slower method. You still have that option, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we didn't want to force our users to trust a new system. That's why we have both in place. Obviously, we're recommending the instant loans to everybody, and it's also the default setting now. But there is still manual loans. So if you only want to rely on just layer 1 Bitcoin, not ICP as a helping hand, which arguably is a much better user experience, then you could still use manual loans. But yeah, as I said, like the trend definitely shows that people prefer instant loans.
Okay, perfect. I again, meet your customers where they are. It's exactly the right approach. Anything else you want to walk through on this on the site?
I think the only thing that you might want to show is just the portfolio, because now that we started a loan, it might actually be so in the pending tab on the right. Yes, exactly there. You can see the loan is currently activating. And basically, as soon as the first block confirmation is in here, then it will show in the borrowing tab on the portfolio. And that's where you then can also repay the loan. And as soon as you repay, you will then get back the collateral. In this case, the Odin dogs.
Right. So now as the borrower, I guess I have the option, right? Is I can repay the loan, or if for whatever reason I'm either forget or something, then essentially I keep the Bitcoin I borrowed, but the lender gets the Odin dog that I collateralized.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. So an interesting strategy here that a lot of borrowers actually borrow for is they use it as a form to hedge against their runes or ordinals. Suppose I take a loan of 1 Bitcoin against something that is worth 1.1 Bitcoin. Now when the loan starts, the Bitcoin that I got, like 1 Bitcoin, is worth less than the collateral. However, let's say during a 30-day loan or something like that, the value of that collateral drops, let's say, for example, to 0.9 Bitcoin. Then as a borrower, I wouldn't want to repay that loan because I borrowed 1 Bitcoin and my collateral is now only worth 0.9 Bitcoin. So essentially what I'm going to do then is I'm not going to repay. I will let the loan default. And then the lender will get the collateral, which is worth 0.9 Bitcoin now, which effectively, as a borrower, then gave me a profit of 0.1 Bitcoin, because I essentially had a stop loss with no additional risk. Because if the ordinal if the collateral went up in price, I could just repay, get that collateral back. If it goes down in price, I won't repay. I keep the Bitcoin. I can buy back that collateral for cheaper. So that's what a lot of borrowers do essentially. But I mean, everybody has their own strategies, and obviously lenders also know that risk. That's why loans have like a fairly high interest rate. Usually interest rates are like above 100% APY. Short-term loans, high interest, fairly high risk for the lender, but also high reward for the lender. So yeah, that's kind of the system.
You could definitely imagine this system and how this is an important function of an ecosystem, especially with like runes, where you get a lot more market volatility relative to the price of Bitcoin, right? So for example, now I've got 0.00157 Bitcoin. And so if my Odin dog decreases in value by just 25%, it's actually better for me, instead of repaying the loan, to use that Bitcoin and go buy, I could buy more than 350 Odin dog, correct?
Exactly.
And then I've got more Odin. I made Odin dog on the transaction. So yes, just a great way to hedge against this. If you have Bitcoin and you want to earn some yield on that Bitcoin, a good chance for you to earn the yield. Really creates like a robust ecosystem. I kind of want to dive more into like Bitcoin DeFi more, but before I do, is there anything else you want me to highlight on Liquidium.fi?
I think that's pretty much everything. I think you did a great job of kind of showing how it works, and that's everything.
I see. I also have some Bitcoin. I could actually do a lend process as well. But maybe what we should do is just let the audience explore this themselves, and so they can see it firsthand. All right, cool. Let me improve my internet speed by stop sharing. And so again, I mean, a robust DeFi ecosystem, it's not just an AMM and having tokens that people swap back and forth. It's actually thinking through like almost like an entire financial market. So like lending and borrowing is very, very key to that. Like, is that kind of, you guys see you're adding liquidity and volume into this, blossoming Bitcoin DeFi system?
Yeah. I think that is really like the perfect explanation. Like that was the whole idea, is to like bring more liquidity to the system, make the capital in the system more efficient by kind of being able to recycle capital. And it definitely, like, I would say it saved the ordinal space a couple of times already when like very big mints were happening. So if like an ordinal collection came out, for example, and the mint price was super high, the collection size was super big, then you could tell, like, for example, that like minting out that ordinal collection would cost, let's say, for example, 200 Bitcoin. And extracting 200 Bitcoin out of the ordinal space, out of the ordinal ecosystem, is very difficult, which means people now have to sell their ordinals in order to obtain that liquidity, which means now you would crash the floor prices of other collections, because there is only a limited amount of capital. And because Liquidium existed for many of these big ordinal mints, we have seen like spikes of borrowing activity before the mints, and people were effectively then like using capital to buy into the mint, which protected the floor prices of the collections that they borrowed against, because otherwise they would have sold, and then that would lead to basically a price dropping quickly.
You get kind of like panic selling as people need the Bitcoin for the upcoming mint, and not great for like trust in the system when you see that one mint can impact price.
100%.
So lending and borrowing, obviously really key for that. Now you mentioned like you guys have saved runes and ordinals multiple times. I mean, I can count. Runes have been dead almost as many. They're kind of approaching how many times Bitcoin has been dead, at least the meme, right? Like, do you guys see, I mean, are you pretty confident that runes really are the future, and that what we're just seeing is like early volatility in a new asset?
I mean, that's a great question, and obviously we can only speculate. But I personally think that runes are, at the moment, and I think also potentially in the future, one of the cleanest ways that you could bring a token to layer 1 Bitcoin. I think that runes are definitely here to stay. I think that we will see upgrades to runes in the sense of more technology coming to Bitcoin, leveraging runes and improving the user experience of runes. For example, like just I think yesterday, there was this big announcement of Slingshot being acquired by Magic Eden, which is huge, and that means that runes will be added to Slingshot. And Slingshot, for the people that don't know, is like a mobile app that lets you trade anything in seconds across chains and whatnot. So that's super interesting. That's a huge benefit for runes, in my opinion. While it is not the, like, I guess, on-chain Bitcoin native user experience that I would personally use as a Bitcoin Power user, it is definitely something that can bring in the masses, that can simplify the user experience, and that brings healthy competition, that overall the user experience will become better. So I think there is definitely a big future for runes, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's at least one of the interesting things. I've never quite gotten a good answer to this. Is like BRC20s did a phenomenal job of going on to centralized exchanges. That's where
Yes.
the vast majority of BRC20 trading is. It happens on Binance and OKX and stuff. Whereas like Runes really still hasn't quite got that traction on centralized exchanges, which really only opens up the opportunity for applications that trade off trust assumptions, more of a centralized, or trades off decentralization for a user experience similar to a centralized exchange, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the reason, or like, I guess, again, only speculations, but the reasons why I think that runes aren't on many centralized exchanges yet is because the big centralized exchanges that did list BRC20 probably noticed that, first of all, adding a new token standard from a new chain and everything is kind of a big lift, because they did have to integrate indexers, they did have to like have the custody in place for BRC20 tokens, yada, yada, yada. So that is definitely a big lift. And then second of all, BRC20 potentially also because of runes had a huge fall off, because kind of like runes came out, BRC20 went down. And then I think for a lot of centralized exchanges, it was like, okay, we spent so much time integrating a Bitcoin token standard. Now nobody uses it anymore, and we kind of burned ourselves. Should we add a Bitcoin token standard again? So
kind of,
I think there is just hesitation when it comes to that. But I mean, we've seen exchanges like Gate.io, MEXC, BitGet, and a bunch of other exchanges list runes. So they have runes trading support, and there is definitely a lot of trading activity for example, Dog and some other runes on these exchanges.
yeah. Would you see like if you were to look at most of the runes, and I love that your guys' token itself is contrary to this point, but most runes are more like meme coin plays, community tokens. Do you see runes kind of evolving into more utility or governance or real world asset kind of plays, or is your bet just like, well, no, this is just similar to kind of like the meme coins going on Solana? We now have that on Bitcoin.
Yeah. So like right now, obviously, like you said, like all runes essentially are just meme coins. And I think it does have a bunch of factors. So first of all, I want to highlight some of the runes that actually are not meme coins. There are some stable coins. For example, USDH is one of the most notable ones, in my opinion. They are essentially something like Ethena, but on Bitcoin. They're also on stacks, so runes isn't necessarily their main focus, but they happen to have a rune and then like a staked USDH, which kind of gives you yield. Ducat is another protocol coming to Bitcoin that has a unit as the stable coin. So we have seen some stable coin projects, and then obviously Liquidium token is kind of like the first and, to the best of my knowledge, the only token to a DeFi protocol. But then the question is like, how many DeFi protocols are on Bitcoin? It's close to zero, because I think that the space is still so new and so little people have figured out how to build DeFi on Bitcoin. And then Magic Eden might be a company that could have launched a rune as a protocol token, but then obviously they have a huge Solana user base, and they didn't want to make, like, launching a rune as a protocol means that you have to build all of the infrastructure to support the rune. On Solana, on Ethereum, you already have that infrastructure. And we thought, okay, we are going to take the risk, at the risk of like currently being super underexposed as a token overall, because there is very little runes infrastructure. But we want to contribute to having a healthy runes infrastructure, like staking mechanisms, like governance programs, and so on and so forth. And I think personally, it is obviously a bet that we're taking, but I think if runes plays out as an asset and if Bitcoin tokens continue to exist, it will be a pretty good bet.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a chicken and egg, or like a two-sided marketplace problem where you need to bring everything to the table almost at the same time. And it's a case where being an early adopter is you're going to have a lot more pain and suffering while you wait for the ecosystem to build out. But luckily, you guys have already proven out the model. In terms of, I had another question, but then I just forgot it. Actually, so I polled a bunch of people on. I sent out a post yesterday on Twitter asking for questions for you guys. I got a lot of questions related to like, what's the future plans for Liquidium? And obviously, you guys don't have to reveal any alpha unless you want to. But a lot of people asking questions of like, stay Bitcoin or go multi-chain, evolve the product. Like you were mentioning, moving instant loans to ordinals as well. Any kind of like insight you guys want to give into the future of Liquidium? I'm sure the audience would be happy to hear it.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and I would absolutely love to answer it. You probably already know the answer, but yeah, big things are coming. We are going to have a big announcement at Bitcoin Vegas. So that will be the official announcement of a new product that I can say already. And I think it will disrupt the industry. I think it will be a product that nobody thought would be able to exist or would be possible from a technical perspective. So yeah, I'm super happy for that. And yeah, so stay tuned for Bitcoin Vegas. That's all I can say for now.
Also, just one thing from me, stay tuned for Vegas and Bitcoin Beach. We will be having a big side event. ICP is also involved, so everyone in Vegas, we will be letting you know soon, but it will be magnificent.
I concur, and I definitely recommend anyone in the audience who can make it to Vegas, make it out, and hit us up on X, and let's all meet up either Bitcoin Beach or somewhere else out in Vegas. So Robin, great job teasing the alpha, teasing the release. Where should people follow more, because they're going to want to stay on top of this?
Yeah, x.com/liquidiumfi, or just like on Twitter, go to liquidiumfi. We will, as soon as we make that announcement, obviously push an announcement on Twitter as well, pin it, and then we'll have like probably a wait list or something, a sign up form to stay tuned. You can also go to our landing page, liquidium.fi, scroll all the way to the bottom. There is a little newsletter sign up form. Promise we won't spam you. And we'll definitely let you know once we are about to release our new product. Yeah, Twitter and Discord, I think, are always the best ways to stay in touch. I think that's true for the whole of Web3.
I think just kind of going back to my take on everything going on, because like you said, I kind of know a little bit behind the scene as well. My take is just like that vision of DeFi coming back to Bitcoin. Like this is the time for that. You guys are pioneers in this space, and so I think it's a really, really, really exciting time, and definitely recommend everyone in the audience to take a look and get excited. Gentlemen, it's great to talk with you again. X, it's Liquidium at liquidiumfi. On the web, it's liquidium.fi, and we hope to talk to you guys real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was a great one.
thank you to the audience for watching, and you'll hear a lot more about Liquidium and a lot more about Bitcoin DeFi in the coming weeks and months. So thank you and take care.
Thank you.